All right. So welcome to the Flash Fiction Workshop for Culturama 2022 with Andrew Turner. Andrew is a fantastic fiction and poetry writer whose full-length poetry collection, Heart, Mind, Blood, and Skin, is now available through Finishing Line Press. And he's going to walk you through some flash fiction exercises on how to write flash fiction. So go ahead, Andrew.
All right. Okay, so before we get started, we are going to be doing quite a bit of writing. There's going to be a very short kind of discussion at the beginning, kind of just talking a little bit about Flash. So I would, if you want to, you can go old school, pen and paper, or if you can you can have a Word document up and typing. And what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about what flash fiction is, and then we'll get into some prompts, writing about those. And then if you want to share, we'll have some time to share kind of after each exercise. So let's get started with what is flash fiction. It's not the easiest answer to come up with because it's really defined by the people who publish it, how long it's supposed to be. So if you want to throw what you think flash fiction is in terms of word count, you can throw it in the chat. But we'll basically get into the thing there in a second. But basically the idea of flash fiction is it's very short form prose. So it is a very, quite low word count. And basically the idea is to take a story, and a story could be anything, a short story, a novel, a trilogy, a series, those are all stories. And basically what we're trying to do is take this story and condense it into a very, very, very small word count. So I see some answers in the word chat, 300 to 500 words, 100 to 1,000. Yeah. So these are all correct answers. Flash fiction, generally, most people consider flash fiction to be 200, 300 words or so, up to 1,000, sometimes up to 1,500 words, which is very rare. That's getting into very short story territory. And then, as Joyce said, there's the drabbles that are under 50 and under 100 words. There are quite a few places out there that publish 100-word stories exactly, or 50-word stories exactly. So those are also part of the flash genre, but they're usually flash. So flash squared, if you will. So that's kind of the length that we're looking at here. Most of the stuff that we'll be kind of generating today will probably be in the 50 to 150 word range, depending on either how fast you write or how fast you type. But basically the idea is to kind of get some, some stories out that you can kind of tinker with later and hopefully send out for publication. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of the length of flash, which is as you can see, kind of varies quite a bit. Any questions on that so far before we go on to the next question that I want to kind of pose to you, which is, what do you expect to find in flash fiction? As a reader, what are you kind of looking to find in flash fiction? I obviously have an idea of what I'm looking for, or what I'm thinking of when I'm writing flash. So kind of think of what you're expecting to flash in flash. And if you have something that I don't say, feel free to throw it in the chat. But basically, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, what's in a short story? We're looking for characters, we're looking for settings, we're looking for maybe some conflict, we're looking for situations, surprise endings, thoughts, all that kind of stuff. So most flash, and not all of it, but most flash has a narrative form to it, just like a short story or a novel. But there, like like Nina says, we're usually kind of already in the middle of it when we're jumping into the story. Which is exactly right. We're basically taking as much out of a story as possible to kind of really get into the meat of it. There's no ponderous thoughts. There's no lengthy descriptions. If most of you have read Tolkien or seen The Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of stuff like you can kind of just really condense to get some of that stuff out, which is, that story's fine, but it's not a flash piece. So we have the typical narrative form, which is, character X wants character this and the character Y doesn't want this, and there's conflict, and boom, you have a story. There's also a couple other things that you can do. You can kind of think of flash fiction also as poetic. You can totally ditch all the narrative stuff and just write a really beautiful piece just about a description of something. But that description is going to have a point of view. It's going to have something to say about the world, right? So it's not just going to be like a really pretty piece of poetry, because then it's probably just going to be poetry. So there's always going to be some sort of angle or some sort of point of view, either from a character or even from yourself, kind of in that. So you can go with the traditional narrative. You can go with something poetic or lyrical. And there's also something that you can do in Flash, which is a vignette, which is kind of like a slice of life, which may not necessarily have a resolution or denouement or anything like that, like a traditional story would, but it's kind of like a slice of life. You can kind of think of, if you've read John's life from peach to pear, I think it was, or any of the other Flash pieces that we've done over the last couple of years. Some of those are vignettes. They're not really telling a story. They're just giving you a tiny little slice of life that's important to a character. Where it doesn't, if you build up 10 or 12 of these stories, they might have an arc. But each piece is just kind of giving you a little bit of slice of life. So those are the things that I think of when talking about or planning to write flash fiction. Is there? I saw that there's a couple of things in the chat that we kind of talked about. Was there any thoughts anybody else had about what they expect to find in flash fiction that we didn't talk about? Or any thoughts, any questions on that? Cool. So we're getting towards the end of the lecture section. Like I said, it's gonna be very short because I want to do a lot of writing today. I just have a couple more things to kind of talk about, which is, can you expect a change in a character in Flash? And the answer can be yes and no. With a narrative, you're kind of always looking for that. What is a change to that character? What did they discover in the story, or what did they find out? Nina says that they're often unresolved and open-ended, which is a great way to do Flash, because it leaves the resolution and the denouement to the reader to kind of come up with on their own, which is a really valid way of doing Flash fiction. And if you're doing a vignette, there's not really going to be a lot of change, but you can have very subtle shifts in character. So I'm not trying to think of maybe my own work or some work I've read, but a lot of the stuff in Flash fiction is going to be subtle. So there's not going to be earth-shattering consequences in Flash, because you just really can't get the buildup that you need for it. Like if you think about novels, or like let's take Game of Thrones, which I know a lot of people are familiar with. There's a lot of stuff going on in that story, and there's stories within stories within stories of that. And they kind of all build together to create these really earth-shattering, universe-moving, pieces. But if you take a look at maybe some of the smaller arcs, like an episode, or maybe even just a scene in some of your favorite shows, those are going to be more like Flash fiction, where there's just tiny little bits of change from the start of the scene to the end of the scene. It's a very subtle shift. And then if you take all those together, you kind of get these big seismic quakes in story. So Flash fiction is, you can kind of consider it as its own genre, but it can also be kind of a building block of other story. So you could think of books as maybe a flash being a chapter or a scene in a chapter even. And so you don't have to consider it as its own self-contained story if you don't want to. You can kind of build upon itself. And the last thing I kind of want to talk about is why in the world would we want to write Flash? Because it seems like it's really hard, but it's kind of, you know, hopefully talking about it, it kind of breaks it down and makes it a little bit less scary. Because if you're thinking of how do I jam pack into a story 500 words and get all of this stuff done? Well, that's kind of what we're here to do today, is to kind of see how we can do that. But the main things that we want to do with why writing it is there's something that we want to say or a story we want to tell that's very small, that's very intimate, if you will. It's going to be something that we're going to maybe we don't want to write something earth-shattering or, you know, something like that with big themes and all that stuff, because that's, I mean, as a writer, it's like sometimes it's like I got 10 minutes, so this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to write a short story because that's all the time I have. And so that's where Flash comes in. Is it's a great exercise just to keep your writing chops up. But the other thing too is you can explore really tiny moments instead of going like, okay, well, I need to write about the people saving the planet, or I need to write about you know, nations fighting against each other and defeating the evil Dark One, or whatever it might be, or, you know, stuff like that. It could be like just as small as somebody going to a cafe and getting their coffee and saying hi to somebody they haven't seen in 10 years. Or maybe it doesn't even have to be like that. It can even be smaller than that. It could be a moment between two lovers at, you know, at the breakfast table, and they finally resolve an argument that they've been having for 10 years, or, you know, even it could be something small like that, or, you know, kind of big like that, but in a small way. So you can get some of that big stuff, but like I said, it's going to be more intimate and more personal. And so that's kind of why we want to explore these moments, is they're very small moments that in our daily lives, we have all these small moments, and that's a great place to kind of explore in our own lives, and kind of put it maybe to paper and let other people kind of explore those small moments, because all the small moments, as I said, can add up to big things. So that's kind of why one, I like writing it, and why it can be interesting to kind of play with. So I'm going to kind of go over some key points of what I think make flash fiction kind of interesting to play with. So one thing that we have to keep in mind is it's a very compact form. So if there's any plot, it has to be a very small arc, very compact. There's going to be a point of view. There's a character that has a point of view. There's going to be at least one character, but today we're going to be focusing on at least two. So almost all flash fiction should have at least two characters, probably not more than 3 or 4, just because you're working with such a small space, you really can't have more than that. You can play with the setting, have a very small setting that you're intimately familiar with, or that your readers might be familiar with. So there's not going to be grand world building. You know, you might have the setting you have might be a very vague season outside a very small place, like a house, a cafe, a restaurant, a park. You're not really going to multiple locations or multiple times. It's just going to be a very, very small scene like that. Another thing that makes flash fiction work really well is you have characters yearning for something. So the best thing is if they're yearning for something different. It doesn't have to be opposite, but it could be something different. Like character A wants to go for a walk, character B wants to go to the movie. And you could resolve it by they walk to the movie, right? You could do something like that. It's very strange sounding, but it doesn't have to be anything grand, but characters kind of yearning either against or kind of away from each other. So they have to have a little bit of conflict. Another thing, is anyone here a poet? You can just kind of quickly raise your hand if you write poetry as well. Okay, so the poets in here, the poets in here are going to probably, no, I wouldn't say be better at Flash, but they're more used to writing in condensed format. Because with poetry, you really have to like, okay, does this word even fit in this poem? And that's kind of what we need to do with Flash. Every word has to matter. You know, throwing in throwaway words, or and then he said, you kind of want to get rid of a lot of that as much as possible. So we're kind of looking at bare bones writing here. And as a first draft, like, you can kind of do whatever you want, but when you're kind of cleaning it up, you want to think about, does this word really matter? Does this sentence matter? Is this important? And if the answer is no, you can take it out, or you can kind of condense it, or maybe say it in a shorter way. Because we are working with, let's say we're working with about 100 to 1,000 words. Even with 1,000 words, that's really not that much. That's about 4 pages of writing. And if you're doing 50 or 100 word stories, it matters even more, the word "and" being in that story. That's where we can use our friendly punctuations to kind of cut out some words. So you can kind of be a little bit creative with punctuation there. And then another thing with Flash that I kind of mentioned before is you can really use these as building blocks for longer stories. You can also think about them as building a world. Like, I know that there's Faulkner wrote a lot of, I think it's Faulkner wrote a lot of stories set in the same town. You can kind of do something like that with Flash. You can kind of build a town, build a universe with just these little Flash pieces. You could build a novel with them. You could just kind of play with a character with Flash. Maybe you're writing a novel, you're writing a short story, or maybe you're even writing a memoir, a poem, and you kind of want to play with the characters. You want to play with something new. These are great exercises to kind of really build on. So maybe something that's not going to fit in your story, but you can kind of play with character in it. So that's kind of what I have for what I think Flash fiction is, based on kind of what I've learned over the years. And I probably missed a couple things, but if anybody has any questions about Flash, we'll take those, and then we will get into some writing. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand, or put in the reaction on Zoom, there's a little hand thing you can do, or you can type it directly in chat. And we'll wait for just a minute in case anybody writing something. Okay. Okay, doesn't look like any questions. We'll also have questions at the end, but I kind of want to go into, we'll go into our first prompt. So I'm going to make a general note before we kind of start. One, I would like if you can put at least 2 characters in all the stories that we write today. I find that as a writer myself, I tend to start with just 1 character because that's easy. Easier for me, at least. So have at least 2 characters. And if you can have them both from the start, even better. We'll try to go for about 10 minutes for each writing session. If we need a little bit longer, that's fine. I have about 6 prompts. I plan to get through 4 or 5 of them. And before we leave, if we don't go over the other ones, I consider them bonus prompts. I will put them in the chat so you can kind of work on those a little bit later if you want. So the first prompt I have, and I'm going to type it in the chat, is going to be, I want you to write about 2 characters' journey about whatever you want. So think about 2 characters that are yearning for something. They should be in some sort of relationship. And when I say relationship, I don't mean that they're romantically involved. It could be friends, it could be family, it could be co-workers, it could be basically any type of relationship that you can think of. So you don't have to think of boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, those types of things. It could be their coworkers. It could be that they happen to be on the same bus and sitting next to each other. So their relationship doesn't have to be very familiar either. But these two characters need to kind of interact with each other and be yearning for, let's go with something with opposition with each other. So maybe character A wants to do something, but character B doesn't. They want to do something else. So kind of think about that, and we'll take about 10 minutes to work on that. And then if you feel comfortable with sharing, we'll do a little bit of sharing after kind of each story, so we can kind of hear what each other is writing and such. So let me go ahead and type that in the chat, and then I'll start with the 10-minute timer now. Let me get that in the chat. We got about 5 minutes left. Okay, so we're about 10 minutes. Does anybody need a little bit more time? Okay, we'll take another minute. Okay, so go ahead and finish up where you are. If you didn't finish, that's okay. All right, so does anybody feel comfortable with sharing what they came up with? All right, Linda.
Thank you. I'm hungry, Jenny said as soon as Elsie walked in the door. Elsie wanted a drink. Do you have any vodka? She asked. Only a little, which worried Elsie. But when she opened the freezer, the bottle had enough to lubricate dinner. She filled a glass with ice and poured 2 fingers. Would you start opening the takeout? Jenny asked. Soon they were seated in front of plates of lemon chicken and snow peas over rice. Aren't you having any wine? Asked Elsie. No, it's too early. It's only 4 o'clock. Elsie thought that was the perfect time to have a drink. Jenny talked about the new job she had applied for. Elsie asked appropriate questions. About halfway through the meal, Elsie got up and added another 2 fingers to her glass. Jenny talked about the guy she was interested in, but who she had decided was still too close to his ex-wife for her to feel comfortable. Elsie made appropriately empathic responses. After the meal, they sat quietly for a while. Then Elsie got up to pour the last finger in the bottle. Do we have to have this conversation again? Asked her sister. Elsie knew the one she meant. Jenny's edict that Elsie not have more than 2 drinks in her presence.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we got 2 characters yearning for different things there. Anybody else want to read something? Okay, Carrie.
Thank you. All right. Okay. They come through my line late, still in their work clothes, their child in his football uniform. I can tell they are in a hurry by the things they have in their cart. Kraft macaroni and cheese, sugar cereals on sale from the end caps. The woman grabs a Diet Coke from the refrigerator. She looks at the man for approval. He nods and she sets it on the conveyor belt. She unloads her cart, her hands lingering on the more costly items, her mind calculating totals. It'll be about $80, she says, pulling out her wallet. A part of her is testing him the way girls do on first dates. Want to chop it? He doesn't pull out his wallet. She sighs, pulling out her debit card. I'll just get it. I'd sell you half, but you still haven't paid me back for last time. The kid rolls his eyes, picks up a candy bar and throws it on the belt. Now I have an echo. I clear my throat, not wanting to take her money. I look into her eyes, tired. I notice the strap on her purse is hanging with threads, the pleather peeling. I need to call my mom on my break, tell her I love her.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Anybody else want to share? Okay, we don't have to, but
Sure.
all right.
I didn't finish mine though.
That's okay.
It's called Blue Lips. My mother held my arm, pulled me towards the towels on a neatly spread blanket. I'm okay, I shivered. No, your lips are blue. You need to rest and warm up in the sun. I tried to pry her fingers off my arm, leaned away with all my weight, and fought each step, sand kicking up and distance lost. The blanket scrunched. She set me down on the sandy, scrunched blanket and wrapped a towel around me, rubbing my arms. The sea splashed only 20 feet from my toes, pulling at the warm sand off the blanket. The sea pulled and pushed even under the sand. That's as far as I got.
Yeah, nice start. Well done. So hopefully you have either part of a story or kind of an idea of where you're kind of going. And we'll kind of keep kind of doing that just so that we can get some stories that you can kind of work on later this week or this year or next year, whenever you have a minute. We're all writers here. We know how it goes. Okay, so the next thing I want to kind of do, because we're going to be playing with a lot of different things here, so we're going to make it a little bit interesting this time. For the next 10 minutes or so, I want you to write a story. Again, we have two characters where the narrator is not telling the whole truth. They're not telling us the truth. They're not being reliable, if you will. I want an unreliable narrator. So I think this will be a fun little thing to do for a flash piece. So again, just the general thing: 2 characters and a narrator who is not giving us everything. So we'll take another 10 minutes, and I'll go ahead and post the prompt in the chat. All right, let's go. We have about 3-4 more minutes. Okay, does anyone still need more time? Let's go ahead and finish up your sentence or your line. Okay. Does anyone want to share what they wrote? Okay, Nina?
I don't think I'm in it myself, so it is unreliable. Where were you? He asked me, gently but with an edge of steel. I told you I was at the party, I replied. Susie told me you left at midnight. Pause, a very heavy pause, laden with unspoken assumptions. No, I didn't, I replied. I was in the garden talking to friends. I didn't even see Susie. Oh, really? What friends? Anyone I know? His tone was calm, but I knew he wouldn't let this go. I doubt it, I replied, then changed the subject. I'm taking a shower. He ignored this. Who are you talking to? His voice was measured, but I knew that was a trick. You didn't have to wait up for me, I said, and left the room quickly, locked myself in the bathroom and turned the shower on, loud, buying myself time so I could get my story straight.
Oh,
I mean, I
That's
don't know
fun.
what's I don't know what's happening myself. So
That sounds like it's gonna go somewhere fun. All right, Linda.
You know, I already went, so if somebody else wants to go, we can do them first.
Okay. Does anyone else
No.
want to read? Go ahead, Linda.
Okay.
And thank you, Nina.
Okay. I was a little confused about the issue of the narrator. So anyway, this is what I came up with.
All right.
When I get up, I tell her I want us to get a lot done today. It's 1:00 p.m. I've come from out of state to help her move and unpack. I've started an electrical project that will require me to rewire all 25 of her outlets. I've barely started, so that's on the agenda for today. She'll be my helper. But first, I've got to go online and catch up on the news. After about a half hour, she says, I'm going to make myself an omelet. Do you want me to scramble you some eggs? I say, no, I'll do it because I like my eggs a certain way, scrambled light with a splash of unsweetened almond milk and served on a shingle, a piece of oat toast. But then I remembered that she knows how I like them. Okay, I guess you can go ahead. Thank you, I say. I stay on the computer. She makes the breakfast, but as the eggs are coming up, I've got to go to the bathroom. When I come out, she's almost done eating. The eggs are cold, so I've got to heat them up in the microwave. Do you know what you'd like to hear? I ask her. In between bites, I go back and forth to the computer to turn on Spotify and search for playlists. Anything is fine, she says. I can hear some tension in her voice. When I'm finished eating, I take the plates to the sink and start to run some hot soapy water. Don't do the dishes, she says. I can do them. What I can't do is the electrical project you've started. This will only take a minute, I say. When the dishes are done, she asks me in what I can tell is meant to be a lighthearted voice. So, are you ready to get started? No, I need to take a shower first, and then I'd better call my parents. It's 4:00 p.m. Her day started at 7. She'll run out of steam in about an hour.
Interesting. Yeah. It's fun.
So in this case, I mean, I was confused about the narrator. So in this case, he's the narrator, and he's really who he's lying to is himself.
Yeah,
But
that's okay. That works. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So basically, as long as we can't trust the narrator, you're doing good.
All right.
All right. Anybody else want to share something?
So I have a question about Nina's story. Who was the narrator in Nina's story?
I suppose the I, that would have been whoever was that I would be me.
So that would be, so say a man and a woman, it's the woman.
That's right. And I suppose I was looking at it as unreliable because she can't remember because she would have been drunk or something. So she's piecing it together.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a perfect thing. If you can be lying, you can be drunk, you can be inebriated, or any other type of thing, and that still makes you an unreliable narrator. Because sometimes it's just fun to kind of play with that one, because with most fiction, the narrators are reliable and quote unquote always telling the truth. So it's kind of fun to play a little bit with that. With that thing. Okay. So I think we can probably get two more in, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. Let's see. Let's do this one next. We're going to work on a story in first person, so that's the I voice, about a place you know well. So just to kind of give you some examples, again, we're going to have two characters, so we're going to have an I and somebody else. And the place you know well could be where you are now. It could be your favorite restaurant, your favorite cafe. Could be the library that you go to, your favorite bookstore. Basically anywhere you know well. It could be something from that you know now. It could be something from when you were a kid. for any time and place. Just pick a place that you know well and throw a little bit of setting into this story. But basically, that's all. It's going to be a little bit about place and the two characters and just some place you can describe well. And we'll go ahead and take about 10 minutes for this one. And again, I'll post that in the chat. Just about 2-3 more minutes. Okay, go ahead and finish up your line or your sentence. Okay, so does anybody want to share their story?
Sure.
All right.
It's not done. Oh, let somebody else go first. If somebody else said something. If not, I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead. And I think you said you wanted to go, Linda?
I'll go if no one else wants to.
We'll do
You
Joy
want me-
and then Linda.
Okay. I didn't finish
I'll
mine.
go too.
Who? What?
I'll go too if
Why don't we let Susan go first? She
Yeah.
hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
this is very short. And anyway,
Yay.
we stood on the sidewalk in front of the house trying not to look like stalkers. Let's just knock on the door. The worst they can do is say no, my mom said. I let her do the talking. I grew up in this house. My father owned the old furniture store that used to be next door. Yes, yes, the man said jovially, ushering us through the door. I was immediately struck by the smell of the room, unaccountably reminiscent of my childhood there 45 years ago. Everything was reasonably the same. The wooden banister that we used to slide down, the leveler doors concealing the tiny coat closet under the stairs. I used to hide there during games of hide and seek. Even the beige Berber carpet lining the room and stairs looked the same, though I knew it would not be the same. He took us through the dining room and into the kitchen where, impossibly, the cabinets were the same ones my dad replaced for my grandmother in 1975. We spent so many mornings looking out the great picture window in the eating kitchen, admiring the cardinals and blue jays and the great pine that held up the back fence.
Oh, that's very nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Mhm.
All right, Joy, and then Linda.
Okay. After the back wooden gate opened, James only came in a step or two, as if his hand wouldn't let go of the rough wood. He stared at a mess of scattered feathers at his feet. The slinky gray cat had a successful hunt this morning. I clipped dead red yellow roses off the branches that climbed and wound through the inside chain link fence. Captured on security video. You wouldn't want to see it. It was a pigeon. And actually the great ninja caught a finch first, just a mouthful, but then caught the pigeon, and the pigeon looked to be almost half the size. There's blood, he said. I think I'm going to be sick. It's just a few spots of dry blood. You better sit down, put your head down. Here? Obviously not. Go back to your car, sit down, take some deep breaths. Why would you leave something like that here? I did not know you were coming over. You didn't call first. I'm woozy. Oh, I think that's how far I got.
That's interesting. That's fun. All right, Linda.
I put on my jacket and get Coco's harness. She tells me that she is excited by her big grin, the wagging of her tail. We head outside and through the gate into the wildlife sanctuary. I wonder who we're going to see today, I say. She doesn't mean to ignore me, but right now sniffing the wild grasses is more important to her. Or maybe that is her response, her sniffing telling me she wonders the same thing. Let me off the leash, please, she asks with her body, her tail shaking her whole hind end. And I give in because we almost never see any people here. She runs ahead. I go over the different kinds of wildlife we've seen in the past. Lots of birds and lizards, of course. The occasional rattlesnake from whom I've taught her to keep a wide berth. A rare sighting of a bobcat is unlikely. And that one scary time we came eye to eye with a mountain lion who was below us in a wash, extremely unlikely. But Coco tells me who her favorites are by the manic way she scans the horizon. Coyotes, we see them often. Both of us were wondering if we would see any today. Soon we were rewarded. 3 coyotes stood up ahead off to the side of the trail. They saw her before she saw them. Coco, come now, I said, but I was too late. I'm going to meet them. Her strong legs carried the message back to me.
Thank you.
Weird.
Yay!
Sometimes weird stuff comes out. It's all fun.
Hey, a dog is a character.
Yes,
Hey, yeah.
they are. Okay, anybody else before we go to our last one? Oh, Lloyd, go ahead. Yeah, of course. Let's hear it.
I was catching up on breakfast real quick, so I had my camera off. Sorry about that. But great stories everything so far. So here's what I have so far. Miss Dwyer, Mr. Rowans. The man in the gray suit made me feel woefully underdressed in my baby blue hoodie and pajamas. He sat down opposite me, sliding his computer bag into the booth before him. I sipped my second cup of hot chocolate with whipped cream. Thank God for free refills. Through the wall behind me, some joker or profoundly broken soul had chosen REM's Everybody Hurts on the bar jukebox. Some drunk voices were singing along to the chorus. Mr. Rowan stared curiously at the wall. Only Denny's I know of with a bar, I said, probably because of the airport nearby. I was just guessing, but I sounded confident enough. While Mr. Rose unpacked his computer, a waitress I didn't recognize came by to drop off my moons over my hammy and take his order. He ordered a coffee, and that's as far as I got.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, so we have about 13 minutes left. So if you want, we can do one last exercise, or if you have any questions, we can go over those. Just go ahead and let me know what you'd like to do.
We can go a couple minutes over too, so
okay.
Usually.
And then let's do our last one, and then if there's we won't share this last one because I don't know if we'll have time, but I want to make sure that any questions we have we can get answered at the end. But the last one I think it should be a pretty fun one. Go ahead and imagine or remember a moment in the last week that you experienced. I like to do last week because usually people can remember something in the last week. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, anything too wild. It could be when you went to the grocery store. It could be you going to the gas station. You going to buy lotto tickets and hoping to win. Basically, what you want to do is just think of something from the last week that you think might be interesting, or maybe that may have had a slight impact on you, and dramatize the moment. So kind of what you want to think about is what was important about that moment or about that time, and what's not. So like if you think about going to the grocery store, going to pick up your groceries, like, if everything's on the shelf, it's not that exciting, but maybe the conversation with the cashier was, right? So what's important and what is not. And when you think about that, go ahead and dramatize the important bits, and the things that are not as important, you can kind of condense or leave out. So let's go ahead and work on that for about 10 minutes. And I'll go ahead again and post that in the chat. We have about 3 minutes, 2 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and finalize where you are. So finish up your line, your sentence, thought. Okay, so I don't think we'll have time to share these ones, but I wanted to see if anybody had any questions about flash fiction. Hopefully you got to kind of see the very different stories that people kind of came up with based on the prompts and just based on the people, kind of what stories you're kind of writing. So everything that we wrote today is all flash. So does anybody have any kind of questions about it? Yeah, go ahead, Linda, and then Susan.
I don't have a question, but I want to just mention a resource that I
Okay.
recently got published in, and I never would have thought. It's a column in the New York Times called Tiny Love Stories, and it's flash memoir of up to 100 words. And
Nice.
just for fun, I learned of it and I sent in and I got accepted. So
Nice.
that was really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I want people to know about it because it's real easy to submit.
Nice. Okay, Susan.
Yeah, so what I was going to ask was actually about that. Thanks. I actually love that column in the New York Times. I read that all the time, and so thanks for that note, Linda. But I came late, so I don't know if you already addressed this. If you have recommendations about where to submit flash fiction.
That's a good question. One of the places I know of is Worthing Flash, which is out of the UK. They'll publish anybody in the world. And I think they do 500 to 1,000 words, I want to say. They have some really interesting stuff. And they're specifically for Flash. There's also a couple other places I just can't remember off the top of my head, but we were talking about this the other day in another one of the things. There's Duotrope. So Duotrope is a great place to find places to submit. You can search, who accepts flash fiction. Lloyd had mentioned there's some place called newpages.com, which you can find places to publish. And then also poets and writers might have some places in there as well. But if you also do a quick Google search of flash fiction, you'll be able to find a place. I think there's a website called Everyday Flash Fiction that you might be able to submit to. But there's a ton of places that are accepting flash fiction, because one thing that's really great about it is you can send it by email to people, and they'll get a nice little story in their email every day or once a week or something like that. So it's kind of a great way to get your work out there. Also, I run a literary journal, East Jasmine Review, and we do publish short stories, including flash. So that's an option as well. And then Connie says, Furious Fiction for a monthly contest. In my see Midnight. Or yes, that seems like a good one. So there's a lot of resources out there, but those are the places I would start. What kind of thinking about, but Worthy and Flash is probably a good one to start. They have a lot of really interesting pieces up there. I think Shark Reef also does flash fiction. I think they do some of that.
Could you say that again? What is that one?
Shark Reef Lit
Shark Reef.
magazine. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so I will go ahead. Oh, Carrie, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that there's like some Facebook groups that have been super helpful for me, like the microfiction group. I think it's run by Meg Pokrass. And speaking of Meg Pokrass, there's also the new flash fiction review that she edits. And I haven't been published in it, but it's definitely a good one. And I mean, calls for submissions and also a Facebook group, really good resource. There's a couple of them. Those are great resources for places to publish flash.
Yeah.
There's a couple people that do newsletters that have just like a list of like 100 different places, and then you can find those on calls for submissions.
Yeah. I'm going to post a couple bonus prompts in the chat before we go. Just if you kind of want to play around with those, since we didn't get to them. And then kind of as you're reading, you're copying or pasting that. I'll kind of give you my bonus thing to, if I had a little bit of time, which we're a little bit over, but I kind of want to go over it anyway. Just kind of a thoughts to think about, which is what I call syntax in Flash. Think about your sentences, the structure of them, how long, how short they are. Again, think about your word choices. If you can pick one word instead of three, pick one. If a sentence is not necessary, take it out. If a paragraph is not necessary, take it out. Basically, you're trying to make it as sparse as possible. So the one thing I kind of want to end on is with Flash, you and the reader's contract is you're saying, hey reader, I trust you with this very little information to come up with what I think you're going to come up with. And every reader is going to read every story differently, but you're trying to give them as much or as little as possible to draw the conclusion you want them to with those words. So it's a very fine dance, but it's quite fun to play around with that.
That actually makes it sound even harder to do now, because you're sort of giving them clues and trusting that they'll just work it out.
Right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what you're doing. But that's with any piece of writing, you have to give your trust to the reader a little bit more, which is hard to do, but it's also a good thing to learn. So, all right. Well, you want to say thank you so much again. I know we got to get going here, but I hope you guys learned something hopefully new and got some stories to play around with, and you got some prompts here to work on, and hopefully you got some stories to play around with and flesh out or play around with too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Welcome.
Great. Cheers.
You're
Thank you so much,
welcome.
Andrew. Please do send to East Jasmine Review if you get a chance. It's a really great magazine. I can say that because I've been published a couple times from too.
Send us more stuff, Lloyd.
I will try. I need to produce more stuff is the issue. We're going to take
I have a
lunch
question
break.
about it. Actually, can I just ask one
Oh, yeah.
quick question?
Yeah.
Is it print or online?
It's online.
Online. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're going to take a lunch break, and after lunch, at 1 o'clock, we'll have a workshop with Thomas R. Thomas on getting your poetry published. And since Linda mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, after that, at 3 o'clock, CLS Sandoval will be teaching a workshop on Flash Memoir. So if you're interested in that, both workshops will be happening in the same Zoom room. So maybe I'll see some of you there later on today. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And thank you to
Bye.
Lloyd and Mount Sac for hosting us.
Oh, you're very
Absolutely.
welcome.